Mishnah 21, third parak, 21st Mishnah, third parak. Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah says, Im ein Torah, ein derech eretz. If there's no Torah, there's no worldly occupation, there's no approach to life. Right? Derech eretz means functioning in the world. You can't function in the world without Torah. Im ein derech eretz, ein Torah. But if there's no occupation, there's no involvement in the world, there's no Torah either. Im ein chachma, ein yira. If you don't have wisdom, you can't have fear, clarity. Right? Yira is seeing God, for seeing clearly what the responsibilities are, seeing what your obligations are, having fear of God. There's no fear of God if you don't have Torah, if you don't have chachma. Right? Ein yira, ein chachma. But if you don't have fear, you're also not going to have chachma. Each of these go back and forth. Im ein da'as, ein bina. If there's no knowledge, there's no wisdom. If there's no knowledge, there's no understanding. Im ein bina, ein das. If there's no understanding, there's no chach, no das, no knowledge. Im ein kemach, ein Torah. Im ein Torah, ein kemach. If there's no flour, there's no Torah. If there's no Torah, there's no flour. He says, Im ein Torah, ein derech eretz. So you talk about a person. So we've used derech eretz a few different ways as we've gone through the Mishnah. Right? Derech eretz is the way of the world. Right? It's a parnasa, a job, a business, a life. But it's also midos and proper behavior. It's functioning, right? It's the proper way. Derech eretz is, a guy getting by in the world. So you might think, right, I'm a pretty smart guy, and I'm a spiritual guy, and I'm a moral guy, and I'll figure it out, right? I'll figure out the proper way to do a deal, to make a sale, right? So if there's no Torah, if it's just based on, I'm going to figure it out, so it's not going to last. I had a conversation with a guy yesterday who was telling me about, so he was had a pretty decent sized distribution company, and one of his buddies had a distribution company and had salespeople working for him, right? And the guy came to him once and said, how do you figure out how not to pay one of your salesmen a commission? It turns out that this person had stumbled into, a multi-million-dollar sale and was owed a couple $100,000 commission. And the boss was very, very angry that this person was going to earn a couple $100,000 for no work at all. Right? A couple of phone calls, and they happen to trip into it, and they're going to earn a year's income off of a couple of phone calls. And he wanted to figure out, how do I finagle my way out of it? Right? Now this is not somebody, if you had said to the guy, listen, you're making, $10 million a year. You want to come with me, we're going to go to the jewelry store and hold the jewelry store up, and I think we can steal a couple $100,000 worth of stuff and make a break for it. Guy's not going to, right? I'm making $10 million a year. I'm not going to go rob a jewelry store. Right? All right, so let's go rob the liquor store. Right? Let's go cheat an old lady out of her savings. Right? I'm not a thief. I'm not dishonest. I'm doing the right thing here. There's no sanity to a woman earning a $200,000 commission in an afternoon. I'm doing the right thing. So you're going to give her $200,000. The woman has earned you $1 million that same afternoon, right? She's a 5% commission, so she's earned you, $4 million. In 2 phone calls, she earns you millions of dollars, and you're, right? But again, if there's no Torah, if you're trying to decide by dead reckoning what morality is, then morality is what you want it to be. Morality is what's convenient for you. That there is no cultural anchor that will build morality. No civilization, right? When you see, Avraham goes down to Egypt and he hides Sarah, right? Then he goes to Avimelech, to the Philistines, and he does the same thing. He hides Sarah again, right? When he does it to the Philistines, Avimelech says to him, what did you see here? Why did you do this? Right? We're civilized. We have courts and government, and we're a civilized people. How could you do this? Why would you feel in need? Like, I understand why you did that to Paro. Those guys are scoundrels. But me, why would you do it to me? And Avram says, because I saw there's no fear of God here. There's no Torah here. Right? You're relativists, right? You've worked out a reasonably decent set of rules to live by, but there's no derech eretz, there's no proper manners and courtesy, right? Without Torah, you can't have courtesy, you can't have manners, you can't have a decent society. On the other hand, he says, without a decent society and manners or courtesy, there's no Torah. Right? There's the other fly side, is people think, I am the most stringent guy you've ever seen. And I read an essay today on Rav Elyashiv. And one of the things that it mentions is that in one place, people were working on, a community approached him on the idea of taking on a certain chumrah. It doesn't say what the chumrah is, but a significant chumrah for the community. And Rav Elyashiv looked at the Rebbeim who came to him and he said, what's wrong with halacha? What's wrong with following the halacha? What do you need to add this for? In another case, another community came to him and they wanted to add a chumrah that would make everyone feel more pious, but on a small percentage of the population would impose a significant burden for people to keep up with it. And he said, what right do you have to make their lives difficult so that you can feel that you're more pious? Right? That's an Adam Gadol. Right? If you become the most pious, orthopractic, right, guy in the world, the most stringent guy on checking for bugs in the universe, but you're just a nasty piece of work and a jerk and you're rude and you're selfish and you're mean to people, it's like, what's that about? That's not Torah. Right? Torah is not about how closely did you check for bugs. Torah is about checking for bugs as a tool for driving you to have an insight in how human beings deal with the world and the exactitude and what's holy and what's not holy and what's pure and what's not pure. But it's a tool to bring a spiritual enlightenment. We're doing all this stuff to change who we are spiritually, not just to go through the most, obsessive compulsive disorder list of stuff that we can do, right? OCD is not the same thing as being machmir and halacha. They're different, right? We're doing these actions as mnemonic devices to drive home deep moral, philosophical, and spiritual principles. We're doing these things as tools to connect us to our Creator, not as ritualistic behaviors to, have done a kabuki act. It's not an act, right? It's not a stylized performance. It's a tool to draw you close to Hashem. Without derech eretz and a nice, kind, sweet, well-mannered approach to life, there's no Torah. He says, Im ein derech eretz, ein Torah. Im ein chachma, ein yira. If there's no chachma, there's no fear of God. And if there's no fear of God, there's no chachma. Right? If you don't have chachma, right, God is not looking for us to live in pachad, in abject terror of Him. The idea of yira shamayim is, I see the consequences. I see the amazingness of the opportunity to have a relationship with my Creator. And I recognize the harm I can do to me and to my world and the destruction I can do. Right? That you need chachma. You have to have wisdom. Right? It's not mindless fear. And it's hard because in English the words just fear. Right? Pachad and yira, both come out in English as fear. I don't want my kids to be scared of God. But you have to be afraid, have clarity on the consequences. The Creator of the universe wants a relationship with you, and you can bring Him closer or drive Him away. And you have to recognize that not all actions are equal, and you have obligations in how you act. It takes chachma to properly have yira. This is the flip side: is it takes yira to properly have chachma. Right? We'll see in a future Mishnah that says a society that doesn't have challah is a society that has a Holocaust. We'll go through it and we'll see in the 5th parak. That challah represents this idea that civilization, right? Challah is civilization. Bread is civilization, right? Apple is easy. Find an apple tree, grab an apple, right? Bread is grow and refine wheat, and then grind it into flour, and then mix it with pineapple juice or the right vinegar mixture and some sugar and wait till the natural yeast settles in, or you have to go find yeast but to make a good dough, an leavened dough, and then it has to rise, and then you have to bake it. And there's bread means technology. Bread is civilization. Bread, right? An apple is, I see a gift from God and I take it off the tree. Bread is, I see a gift from God and I use human ingenuity and civilization to convert that gift into something that's even better. But higher than that, challah. What's challah? Chala is a recognition that Yira Shemayim has a claim on civilization. Right? We're going to do the same idea when we get to that mission, the fifth parak. But that you have to have Yira Shemayim, otherwise you become Nazis. Right? The most sophisticated culture in the world. But without Yira Shemayim, without a sense that Hashem has the right to demand Chala, that holiness has a claim on physicality, Chachma means nothing. That brilliant people can justify anything. They will rationalize anything if there's no Yira Shemayim. You can't have Chachma without Yira. Ein Da'ah, Ein Bina. Without knowledge, there's no understanding. Without understanding, there's no knowledge. Right? Prejudice. Right? Understanding something without knowledge is prejudice. Prejudging. Understanding means I have a gut sense of what's true, but I have that without any sort of knowledge. There's no facts behind that. I know that your racial group or cultural group is shiftless and worthless, right? I judge you and have an understanding, right? An understanding of what you are without any information to back it up. Right? You can understand and feel and have an emotional, right, connection to knowledge without any real knowledge. Right? That's what prejudice is. Jews are cheap. Right? Whatever it is, pick your prejudice. Prejudice is an understanding that is disconnected from any sort of actual information or knowledge or fact. Right? The other side, though, is knowledge or fact that is disconnected from understanding. That's innumeracy, it's illiteracy, it's foolishness. Right? I still remember years ago reading a thing in the paper that said there were, well, we just saw it today, something that says that the city of Los Angeles, right, has over 100,000 homeless people. Right? So the city has 4 million people. 100,000 out of 4 million is 1 out of 40. Right? 40, 100, 4 million. So it's really 3 million. So it's really even 1 out of 30. But given the benefit, they call it 1 out of 40. So my block has 20 houses on one side and 20 houses on the other side. That's 40 houses. And there's 3 people on average in each house. It's 120 people living on an average block. Not a dense block, just a moderate block. So that means there need to be 3 homeless people on my corner. And on the next corner, 3 more homeless people. And the next corner, 3 more. Every corner, right, every block should have, to be at that number, every block needs to have 3 homeless people. Now, okay, we've managed to move them all to Skid Row. But you get to density, whatever. Right? But I remember reading it, it's like, listen, it's a real problem. It's a horrible problem. But that's not the problem, right? It's like you make people, if you don't have a sense of numbers, right? If you don't have the facts, right? If you don't have understanding to back up your facts, the ability for people to lie to you or deceive you or confuse you is huge, right? That if someone comes and says, this is bad for you, you have to, when you hear a fact, the first thing you have to kind of do is say, order of magnitude. Does that make sense or not? Does that fit my general sense of reality or not? And then you ask, maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. Why should it? Why shouldn't it? But you have to kind of check it out. That facts and understanding without facts, right, is pure prejudice. But facts and knowledge without any sort of understanding, right, you're just going to get lied to. Right? You're a fool. It's foolishness. Ein kemach, ein Torah, ein Torah, ein kemach. If you don't have food, you're not going to have Torah. That a person who's starving, who has no confidence and no security and spends his whole life every day terrified that he's not going to have food for his kids, is not a person who has the ability to sit and calmly learn, or calmly focus on his obligations, or calmly connect to Hashem, or do anything. Because I need food, right? That's like I am, a part of the edge of this, you people whose lives are in such turmoil, right? It's not 100,000 homeless people, but there's plenty of homeless people. And how are those people supposed to have a life? Right? How do you get anywhere? You can't get off the ground if you can't, right? If you don't know how you're going to give your kids something to eat, there's nowhere to go. But then he says, even if you have kemach, even if you're rich and you have food, if you have no spirituality, no Torah, no connection to God, no truth in your life, then you have nothing. You don't even have food. So he goes through all these things. The world is interdependent, right? Your physical and your spiritual sides are interdependent. You can't just look at one and let the other rot. Right? God created us to be balanced people. So that's our Mishnah.